Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I'm an author and a book reviewer, and I'm trying to work out if I have nectarine in my teeth, but I don't think I do. So I think that we can crack on with the video. I am on book deadline at the moment, so today's video may be slightly shorter than usual. We're going to do a book haul today. Last week I uploaded my favourite books of 2022 video. The week before that was my stats of the year, and next week will be a super long cozy reading vlog. So yes, but today we are here to do a book haul. As usual, I will list all of the books in the description box down below if you want to go and check any of them out. Some of these I bought myself. One was a gift, and some are sent from were sent from publishers for review. So let's dive in. Now, first off, I have two books I bought myself. These are both crime novels. If you have seen my best books of the year, you know that I loved Silent House by Nell, which is the first in a trilogy. I read the whole trilogy, but I especially loved the first one. And I decided I would like to buy another one of Nell's books and have a read. So I bought Friends Don't Lie. This book is about two people called Isabella Butterworth, and I think one wants to steal the other person's identity. Then I'm pretty sure, it was a while ago, but I was reading an interview, I think, with Nell, or maybe it was an article that she'd written as part of the Bookseller's disability issue. I can't remember, but it was about disability crime fiction, and she was talking about another author who she is friends with, and that is Penny Batchelor. And I'd never read any of Penny Batchelor's work before, and you know that I'm all about own voices disability writing. So this is her crime book, My Perfect Sister, and I thought I would pick this one up too. So this is about someone called Annie who is coming back to care for her mum in her mum's older age, and then she's confronted again with her sister, well, not with her sister, but with the memory of her sister going missing in 1989, and I think she's going through old things in the house, and maybe she discovers some clues and something is not quite as she thought it was. It says a compelling family drama with a dark twist. Need a dark twist in crime fiction. Then I have some of my most anticipated books for this year, which I have spoken about in a previous video because I did was it 20 books I was excited about for 2023? I think so. I will link that video in the description box down below. So I'll just quickly whiz through these 5 because I've already spoken about them over there. But we've got, in no particular order, Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater, which is out in the spring. This is about two booksellers, Laura and Roach. Laura really loves customers, Roach really hates customers. Roach is really into true crime and then finds out about a family secret that Laura has and becomes completely obsessed with it and her. Then we have Elsewhere by Yagi. This is her first short story collection that has been published in English. She writes in Chinese normally. She wrote Strange Beasts of China, which was published by Tilted Axis. Looks like this. This was one of my favourite books of 2021. Magical, mysterious, wonderful, and I think that this collection Elsewhere is also going to be very fantastical. She's also got a novel called Hotel Destination that's coming out, I think, in 2024, but she's now moved to Faber, and this is the first book of hers that they're publishing. And I'm very excited about it. Then we have, also published by Faber, Shy by Max Porter. You know I love Max. He's the author of Grief is a Thing with Feathers and Lanny. This is his 4th novel because he also wrote, I've completely forgotten the title. It's about Francis Bacon. I'll insert the cover here. But this is his latest book, which is about a teenage boy, and I don't really want to know much about it before going into it, so that's as much as I'm going to explain here. It's about a teenage boy. There we go. Then we've got Ayobami Adebayo's 2nd novel. This is A Spell of Good Things. It's coming out in February, and I will be reviewing this for Toast next month, so I'll definitely be reading it very soon and can talk to you about it. This is about two people whose worlds collide, and then it leads to, I think, political upheaval. It says it's about two families caught in riptides of wealth, power, romantic obsession, and political corruption. I absolutely loved her book, Stay With Me, which came out about 5 years ago now, I think. And then this is also a book I don't know too much about. It's called Biography of X by Katherine Lacey. I read her novel Pew also in 2021, and that was one of my favorite books of the year. It was very eerie and didn't provide answers, didn't perform in the way that maybe you wanted it to as a reader. It just kept dancing out of your reach, and I really loved the way that she played around with the novel like as a concept. So this seems to be a little bit similar. It says the title of this book, as titles so often are, is a lie. This is not a biography, but rather a wrong turn taken and followed. The document of a woman learning what she should let lie in ignorance. Perhaps that's what all books are. The end of someone's trouble, someone putting their trouble into pleasing order so that someone else will look at it. I don't want to know more than that before diving in. You may be able to hear the dishwasher. I'm sorry if you can. I think it's about to start beeping. I have bought myself a copy of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I have read this before, but I don't have a copy of it. But I am doing an event with the British Library in February talking about disfigurement and disability in Gothic literature with a specific emphasis on Jekyll and Hyde, because this is a GCSE text. The event is for teachers, but if you happen to be a teacher and you want to sign up, I will leave details in the description box down below. But I need to refresh, so I need to reread this and then write things down about those topics so that I can talk about them. Now, one of you commented on a video recently, I think it was my favourite books of the year, in which, spoiler, I talked about Untold Night and Day by Baeswa, which is translated from the Korean by Deborah Smith. And they said, I also loved Untold Night and Day. I wonder if she's written anything else. And I thought, well, she has written something else, because I've read a pamphlet of hers called Millennia Ecstatic, which is published by Strangers Press. But then I thought, but I've never checked to see if she's written anything else. Do you ever do this with authors when you find someone who could potentially be a new favourite? You read something brilliant and then you just forget to check if they've written anything else. Apparently I did that with Baeswa, and then I went and looked, and I think she has 3 or 4 other published things that I haven't read. And the temptation was to collect them all, but I'm being good, and I got one of them, and it's this one here, which is called A Greater Music, which is also translated from the Korean by Deborah Smith. I just really love the sound of this blurb. So it says, near the beginning of A Greater Music, the narrator, a young Korean writer, falls into an icy river in the Berlin suburbs where she's been house-sitting for her on-off boyfriend, Wahim. This sets into motion a series of memories that then move between the hazily defined present and the period 3 years ago when she first lived in Berlin. So it's talking about her friendship with M, who's an ultra-refined, music-loving German teacher, music-loving German teacher, whom it is suggested later becomes her lesbian lover. There seems to be quite a few parallels between this and Untold Night and Day. And whilst I think some people can get frustrated with writers exploring similar topics in their books, I actually find that really fascinating. You know, that writers are maybe taking certain themes and excavating more and more each time. So I'd be really interested to read this and then compare it with Untold Night and Day and see how many similarities there actually are. Next is a book that was gifted to me by my brother for Christmas, and that is Super Infinite by Katherine Rundell. I have been wanting to read this for a while. I had such a soft spot for John Donne's poetry when I was an A-level student. You know, Compasses Leaning and all of the alchemy and all of that stuff. I had a really good A-level teacher who loved John Donne and made everybody else love John Donne too. I do know quite a bit about his life, but not everything, obviously, and some of it I'm sure I have forgotten. And Katherine Rundell is such a wonderful, wonderful writer, so I look forward to seeing how she tells his particular story. And this has won so many prizes, and everyone who's read it seems to adore it, so that is very exciting. Then a book arrived in the post that I had pre-ordered and had forgotten I'd pre-ordered it, because I pre-ordered it, how many times can I say pre-order? I pre-ordered it much earlier in 2022, and then I forgot about it because there really aren't many books that are published at the very end of the year. It's just a bit of a dead time in publishing. Christmas books are published in September, so they've got a run up to Christmas, and then end of December and very early January, with the exception of diet books and, you know, New Year, New You books, which make me want to throw up a bit. Not a lot else is published, but this was, and this is Ordinary Wonder Tales by Emily Urquhart. Emily Urquhart is the author of Beyond the Pale, which is a book I read in 2015, I think. I blurbed the cover of it for the UK edition. Emily wrote about the history of albinism in that book because her daughter Sadie has albinism, and she researched how albinism has been used in folklore around the world and superstition to do with albinism. And we recorded a podcast episode back in the days when I had a podcast, which was called Books with Jen, and all the episodes are still available if you're interested. But we had a chat about that book and about fairy tales and superstition. I think it was around the time that I'd read Richard Lloyd Parry's book Ghosts of the Tsunami, which he'd written about the folklore surrounding the Fukushima disaster in Japan. And Emily talked a bit in that podcast about how she was starting to write this book, which is about everyday superstitions surrounding modern day things. So a lot of people think that folklore and fairy tales are things of bygone times, but they're not. We're creating new folklore for ourselves all the time. It just takes quite a while to become ingrained in our cultural conscience, I suppose. And this is something that I'm really interested in as well, which you probably know. So this is a book that she has written around those topics. It says, in this startling original essay collection, Emily Urquhart reveals the truths that underline our imaginings, what we see in our heads when we read, how the sight of a ghost can heal, how the entrance to the underworld can be glimpsed in an oil painting or in a winter storm, or the onset of a loved one's dementia. In essays on death and dying, pregnancy and prenatal genetics, radioactivity, chimeras, cottagers and the plague, Ordinary Wonder Tales reveals the essential truth. If you let yourself look closely, there is magic in the everyday. Now, did I purchase this book because of the cover? It was certainly a large component. This cover is by Michelle Crow and I absolutely love it. This is called Self-Portrait with Ghost by Meng Jin, and this is a collection of short stories. The blurb is actually quite vague. It says that it was written during the turbulent years of the Trump administration and then the first few years of the pandemic. And these are a variety of different stories about intimacy, isolation, coming of age, and coming to terms with the repercussion of past mistakes. So that's all I know about that. I read a story by Meng Jin online and decided I really liked their writing. She is the author of Little Gods, which I haven't read but have heard good things about. Then we have a proof. This is coming out in the spring and this is called Mrs. S by Kay Patrick. It's all tied up very nicely. This is a novel that has been compared to Notes on a Scandal, if I'm remembering the press release correctly. It's published by Fourth Estate. It says, this is what it is to be wanted. Loving her will be impossible. There is nothing that I can do to stop it. There we go. Let's undo this and see if there's more on the inside cover. It says, in an elite English boarding school where the girls kiss the marble statue of the famous dead author who used to walk the halls, a young Australian woman arrives to take up the antiquated role of matron. Within this landscape of immense privilege in which the girls can sense the slightest weakness in those around them, she finds herself unsure of her role, her accent and her body, and that is until she meets Mrs. S, the head mistress. So I think that they enter into a relationship. So I think it's kind of Secret History meets Notes on a Scandal. I'm always trying to find dark academia books that I actually like because so often I'm disappointed by them, and I'm hoping I'm not going to be disappointed by that one. Another proof copy that I've been sent is Voyager, and this is being published by Daunt Books in February, so very soon. It is by Nona Fernández, and it is translated from the Spanish by Natasha Wimmer. It says, weaving together the narrative of her mother's epilepsy with stories of the cosmos and of her country, Fernández braids astronomy and astrology, neuroscience and memory, family history and national history into an intensely imagined autobiographical work. This sounds a little bit similar to me, like Ordinary Wonder Tales. I think maybe that would be a fun reading experience to read both of those together, how we can kind of mythologize our own existences, you know? Then I bought Diary of a Void by Emi Yagi, and this is translated from the Japanese by Lucy North. I am hoping that this is going to be a bit like There's No Such Thing as an Easy Job, but me actually liking it, because I didn't like that book. A bit like The Factory, which I also didn't like. a book about the monotony of work and someone trying to shake that up a bit. So my understanding of this is that it is a novel about a woman called Miss Shibata, and she doesn't like her job. She feels like she's not respected enough, so she decides to pretend to be pregnant because she thinks if people think she's pregnant, then she's not going to be forced to do menial tasks that she doesn't want to do, and people will in general be more interested in her and treat her with respect. And that just sounds a bit messed up, and I would like to read that, please. Thank you very much. So that's why I purchased that one. Then I bought a cookbook. I bought this cookbook because Lauren over at Lauren the Book showed it in one of her book hauls, and I thought that looks very good. I like making gyoza and dumplings in general. So this is pierogi, so this is Polish dumplings, and this is what it says it is. It's a book about pierogi and about all the different kinds of dumplings that you can make. It's got lots of drawings inside, lots of different fillings for lots of different occasions, and I am keen to dive into here and find some recipes that I haven't tried before. I just thought I would include it because a cookbook is a book, is it not? Then I have this proof copy here, which is called Why Women Grow, Stories of Soil, Sisterhood and Survival by Alice Vincent. This is the proof, but the cover is very beautiful, the finished version, so I will insert that here too. So this is going to be published around International Women's Day, and it explores the history of women and gardening, why women have felt compelled to nurture things, grow things, be custodians of the earth, especially, to use a word I think I've already used in this video, exhuming stories of, exhuming stories of women whose lives have been overlooked. She has been nominated for the Wainwright Prize before, but I don't think that I've read her writing prior to this, so that'll be new and exciting. And then finally, I purchased All in Your Head, What Happens When Your Doctor Doesn't Believe You by Marcus Sedgewick. So Marcus was a children's author. He's written, I think it's over 40 books he's had published for kids, and he is very much beloved, and he died last year very unexpectedly, and prior to that had been I don't know what point was diagnosed with a chronic illness, but went through a lot of disbelief from his doctors, and this is about navigating those areas and what that was like for him. So it is a non-fiction book, and I'm very sad that he is no longer with us, but I've heard from, I think it was Polly Atkin, lots of other disabled writers, that this is a brilliant book, so I would like to read it. So those are all the books that I had to talk to you about today. Some backlist books, some new books, some books that are coming out in the future. I would love to know if you have read any of these, or if they are on your radar, or if they weren't on your radar but are now. Let me know in a comment down below. If you enjoyed this video and you are new to my channel and you would like to subscribe, that would be lovely. And if you like my content and you would like to consider supporting me on Patreon, there is a link to that in the description box down below. Support over there is very much appreciated. It means I can keep creating free content for everybody. It also means that I can take the time to make everything accessible and all of the good stuff. That's it. I hope they're all doing all right, and I will see you for another video next week. Sending lots of love. Bye.